We're now pleased to have Paul Elio join us from Phoenix, Arizona. Prior to founding Elio Motors, Paul was an engineer at Johnson Controls, CEO of the automotive consultancy ESG Engineering. He is an automotive enthusiast who saw a need for a radically different vehicle, and if you've seen them, they are really radically different. That's economical in terms of initial purchase price and ongoing fuel costs, as well as safe, environmentally conscious, and fun to drive. So in 2009, he founded Elio Motors, a design and manufacturing company, to make efficient, low-cost, three-wheeled vehicles in the United States. In November 2015, he began a Regulation A offering of Elio's common stock. They have raised nearly $17 million from the offering. The shares are now traded on the OTCQX market, and we thought it would be interesting to hear both from Elio and later OTC markets about their experiences with Reg A. And Paul, thank you for joining us, and go ahead.
Oh, thanks for having me. My understanding is you wanted me to kind of go through a little overview of the company first, and then we'll talk about Reg A Plus. And this was a very interesting conversation to listen in on. I have to say that the single biggest hurdle in creating Elio Motors was attracting capital. And I don't think if Reg A Plus hadn't happened that we would have made it. This was absolutely key to our continued success. So thank you. So, there we go. The forward-looking statement. Basically, Elio is about four things. A compelling value proposition, low price and high mileage. So our targeted sticker price is $6,800 and our targeted mileage is 84 miles per gallon. And either one of those by themselves is compelling, but when you put them together, it's an overwhelming value proposition. It's got to be safe. We're designing it to the highest automotive safety standards. We aren't allowing any new technology. I believe technology risk is the death knell of many pre-revenue startups, right? Even if you bet on the right technology, if it takes you 6 or 9 months longer to work out than you thought, and you're working off of other people's money, bad things happen. So by using all technology that's already out there, that's already being made and on other vehicles, and just executing on this vehicle, we substantially mitigate that risk. And we're committed to making it in America. We control a site that we got out of the GM bankruptcy in Shreveport, Louisiana, and we have a target of 90% North American content, and I think we'll come very close to that. So not only is it assembled in America, but the parts are coming from here as well. The basic architecture is it seats 2 people front to back. The reason for that seating configuration is that's the key to the gas mileage. At highway speeds, most of your fuel goes to moving air. We're half as wide and half as much air, so we get double the mileage. It has 3 wheels, which technically makes it a motorcycle, but what it does for us is it hides that 3rd wheel behind the airstream that you've already moved. So it improves aerodynamics. It's front engine, front wheel drive, so 70% of your mass and all your traction is happening over those front 2 wheels. This is showing some of the engineering that's gone on behind the scenes. This is the front, side, and rear impact analysis. There's the computational fluid dynamics, which is predicting drag, which drives our gas mileage calculations. This is a high-speed swerve at 50 miles an hour, and this is showing the interior for fit and finish. So this is not a paper napkin sketch. There's a lot of work that's gone on in this project. We believe that there are 4 markets that we can sell Elio into. 2 of them exist, and 2 of them we are going to create and own all by ourselves, at least for a time. The first and most obvious is the new car market. It's traditionally about 16 million units a year. It's more this year and probably next year. It's highly developed, highly segmented, with 100-year-old players with great reputations, and quite honestly, we will get our hats handed to us in that market. We're not going to go in and take 100,000 Toyota, Ford, or GM customers away. So although it's by far the most obvious, it's the least interesting. The next market that also exists is the used car market. It's traditionally 2.5 to 3 times larger than the new car market, and I think we play very well there. If your alternate's a 120,000-mile Civic for $7,000 or a brand new Elio for $7,000, I think we win a fair number of those sales. Then we have the two markets that we create. First is the clunker market. There's approximately 100 million clunkers on U.S. highways. Now, these are different than used cars. These are cars that people are using duct tape and bubble gum to keep on the road because they can't afford to trade up to get a better used car. I think we do very well in this segment. We're going to run a program aimed at those folks called Let Your Gas Savings Make Your Payments. And the way it works is you walk into our showroom, sign your name, you get a brand new vehicle and a credit card with a $300 limit on it, and we let you walk back out the door. Now, the deal is you have to charge all your fuel with that credit card. And every time you charge gas, we charge a triple. So by $10 worth of gas, it shows up as a $30 charge on your credit card statement. And that $20 extra goes to paying down your loan, right? It's your car payment. Now, as long as you drove in the dealership in something that gets 27 miles per gallon or less, and all 100 million of these old cars do, your monthly fuel bill actually goes down, right? 3 times 27 is 81, and we get 84. So from the consumer's perspective, they have a brand new vehicle under warranty. It's fun to drive. They don't have a car payment, and they are guaranteed to spend less on gas next month, a triple amount on their brand new Elio, than they did single amount on their clunker last month on the vehicle they were struggling to keep on the road. We can literally give cars away to the 100 million old car drivers. The last segment that we create is the third vehicle, or the AND vehicle, A-N-D. So the premise here is that Americans buy big vehicles for a reason, right? We like to disparage ourselves as being wasteful and lazy, but the reality is you can't haul plywood in a Prius, you can't tow a boat with a Versa, right? We buy big vehicles with a specific use in mind, and we use that vehicle for that purpose, 5% of its miles, right? And because small cars are too expensive, they're an or choice. And so we end up driving all that metal back and forth to work all by ourselves to have that functionality when we need it. At $6,800 and 84 miles per gallon, Elio becomes an and choice. So you buy and keep the big vehicle for the reasons that you wanted it, and you buy an Elio too. Now, we had been preaching that this segment existed, and now we have data. We polled our reservationists about a year and a half ago, and asked them if they were going to trade a vehicle. 90% said they were not going to trade in a vehicle. They're just going to buy an Elio. So we've now demonstrated that this vehicle, or this segment exists, and almost all of our reservations are coming from that segment, which makes sense, right? If you're in the market for a new or used car, you need a vehicle today, so you're not putting a reservation on an Elio. If you're in the clunker market, you don't have money to put down on a vehicle you're not going to see for a year. So it makes sense that all of our reservations are coming from that one segment. And as we have go into production and have vehicles, we'll start being able to sell in the other segments. We've gotten really good traction in social media. We have 320,000 likes on Facebook. We can consistently get about 550 to 600,000 unique visitors to our website every month, which puts us ahead of Fiat and Scion and on the heels of Volvo and Mini. And for a new company, we're pretty proud of that. We're now over 55,000 reservations. So we have 55,000 people who have said, I want an Elio, and was willing to put money down. We have 2 programs, refundable and non-refundable. And we've collected approximately $24 million in rewards crowdfunding. 23 million of that is non-refundable, so it skews heavily to the non-refundable category. We recently did a survey on have you ever heard of Elio? And it turns out only 6.5% of America has heard of us. So these reservations, the number is rather impressive, but it's even more impressive when you realize that we've ruled out 93% of America so far. So we're on a mission to increase the brand awareness, because obviously if you haven't heard of us, you can't make a reservation. And by the way, this rewards crowdfunding has been critical to our success. The dollars obviously were important, but what's more important is proving the market. So when we first hatched the idea and we said, hey, people will buy this low-cost, high-mileage vehicle with front-to-back seating and 3 wheels in this unproven market, it was very hard to get traction. But as we've gotten more and more people to say, yeah, I will buy that, that really has helped us in so many other areas. Our business model is different as well. So we're going to do company-owned stores, direct sales to the customer, same as Tesla. So that's not particularly innovative, but I think it's the right way to go. What we're really doing different is we are abandoning the package system. So current auto manufacturers can build millions of configurations of a given model. Now they don't, because that would cripple their inventory. So they've created packages, LX, SX, and DX, to constrain their build sequences to 300 to 500. The problem with that is you get forced to buy an enormous amount of content you don't want. J.D. Powers recently did a survey, and consumers are reporting they don't use 40% of the technology embedded in their vehicle. The problem is it's not the same 40% for any of us, so they can't just lop it off of the package. So the consequence of the package system is you were forced to buy thousands of dollars of stuff you neither need nor want to get the things that you do want. So we're going to do that differently. We're only going to build it two ways, a standard and an automatic. That's it. Everyone comes with air conditioning, power windows, power door locks, stereo, and cruise control, because pretty much everybody wants that. All of the rest of the upscale content that you are used to seeing on your vehicle, you can get on your Elio, but we add it post-manufacture. So if you want a power leather seat, we can get you that. If you want blind spot detecting mirrors, Continental is our electronics supplier. They're the world's largest. We can get you that. So the process is you walk into our showroom, say, I want the red automatic with the leather seat and blind spot detecting mirrors. That order goes off to one of 7 marshaling centers, where the content gets added as the orders come in. We close our stores at 9 p.m., and we build out vehicles till midnight, so we have 3 hours to clear the system. At midnight, all those vehicles go on trucks, and with 7 marshaling centers, we're within 9 hours of all of our showrooms. So theoretically, at 10 a.m. the next day, you get the vehicle exactly the way you wanted the day before, no matter what time you walked in. So at first blush, this system gets the customer a lot more for a lot less. But it does more than that. Most of the content that you see in vehicles today are created by the Tier 1 supply base, not by the OEMs. And those Tier 1s have a very difficult time getting their new ideas executed on a vehicle. The two questions they have the hardest time answering is, who else has it? Nobody wants to be first. Everybody wants to be second. Nobody wants to be fourth, but nobody wants to be first. Because if they integrate it and it doesn't work, they're on the hook on repairing that widget for the next decade, trying to keep their customer happy. We don't have that issue. Because it's designed to be put on after the vehicle is made, it comes off easily as well. So we're okay with being first, and if it doesn't work, we're going to have a very liberal return policy. We'll take it back off and return the customer's money. The next question they have a very difficult question answering is, does my customer actually want this? Because these things are always packaged in with a bunch of other stuff, they can't say, yes, your customer is buying that package because of our widget. Now we call this business model the E+ system. With the E+ system, now they can go in and say, are you first? No, Elio's got it. Does my customer want it? Yes. 70% of Elio customers are putting it on their vehicle, and they're willing to pay $150. So they want it, and this is what they're willing to pay. So it's a great way for them to test out their new technology and prove that it's viable and drive it through their traditional customer base. What's good for our customers is they get to see the new technology first, right? If the big guys get enamored with the technology, because of their design cycle, it takes them 3 years before it shows on the market. Our accessories won't have a model year, so as soon as it's available, it'll be available on Elio. So for the first time ever, the lowest priced vehicle in the market will have the best technology first. That's never happened before. And our customers will get a lot better options on how to appoint their vehicle. The next thing is the vehicle stays relevant longer. So particularly with electronics, the cycle time for electronics is much, much faster than the useful life of a car. Think about how many vehicles are on the road today with cassette players and CD players that are all but obsolete. And it's taken up that real estate in your dash. If that weren't integrated in, so that when the next big technology comes out, you can pull that off and add the new thing, your vehicle stays relevant for much, much longer. So I think although it's not a huge risk, we're not culling outside the lines too far, this is going to be a big improvement in customer satisfaction and making the vehicle viable for a very long time. On service, we've partnered with Pep Voice. That allows us to have 800 authorized service centers day one. So we have more service centers than Volkswagen day one, which is a big win for a startup. I think I talked through that slide. So we have developed our own engine in cooperation with IAV. IAV has 65% of the engineering services business in Germany and does engine development for Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Bugatti, and others. We showed the vehicle down here, the red one in the corner, at the LA Auto Show with an Elio engine in it. And that is not a trivial milestone. It's the first time a new American startup showed a vehicle with its own engine in it since NAS did it in 1951. So it's been 65 years since somebody did that, and we're very proud that we made that milestone. This is really the story of Elio Motors. It's the supply base. So people outside of Detroit look at who's selling us parts and say, of course they'll sell you parts. And the answer is no, actually they won't. They don't like startups and they don't like small companies. And particularly right now. So in the downturn, a ton of suppliers went out of business. We're now back at record volumes. And every single supplier is resource constrained. So they are telling the big guys no in order to have resources available to work on Elio. So the fact that they're engaged really means something. And it's truly the who's who of the global supply base. Continental is the largest auto parts supplier of any description. They're doing our electronics. Bosch is the second largest auto parts supplier of any description. They're doing fuel injections and safety sensors, a bunch of other stuff. Aisin is the world's largest transmission supplier, the fifth largest auto parts supplier of any description. Kamau is our manufacturing supply partner. They're wholly owned by Fiat Chrysler. Guardian is the world's largest auto glass supplier. I can go on, but it's truly a who's who of the global supply base. And that's really the story of Elio Motors, is getting these folks engaged. And how the vehicle is designed is through a series of what we call supplier summits. So we get all these folks together for 3 days, work on the vehicle as a group, break apart, come back together and do it again. We acquired this site out of the GM bankruptcy. It's a 4 million square foot building on 500 acres of land. To put that number in perspective, the Empire State Building, it's about 1.5 Empire State Buildings. So it's an enormous site. And GM left all the equipment behind. We believe or estimate that it reduces our total startup cost by about $400 million, or cuts our startup cost in half. We get out of about $300 million of equipment purchase and about $100 million of building construction as opposed to a greenfield. But it's even more important than that. If you gave me all this equipment, it wouldn't be nearly as valuable as it is in place. A manufacturing plant like this is a very complex one-off organism. And it takes a lot of time and money to get all those pieces and lines to work together. All that debugging and technology has been accomplished for us by GM, and we get the benefit from that. This section of the presentation is kind of the why of the project. So the billboard on the right is a real billboard from South Africa. German engineering, Swiss innovation, American nothing, smart for four. And if that don't piss you off, right? That's what the world thinks of us, and quite honestly, that's what we think of ourselves. And I believe that the direct impact of Elio is significant, but I believe the indirect impact of Elio is even more significant. Just like Roger Bannister didn't get the memo that the human body couldn't run a mile in under 4 minutes, so he went ahead and did it. And within 90 days, I think 3 or 4 people did it, and within 2 years, like 20 people did it. Same thing here. We didn't get the memo that you can't build a high-quality, high-mileage, low-cost vehicle in this country with substantially all North American parts. So we're going to go ahead and do it. And when we succeed, this is a high-profile, sexy project. Other entrepreneurs will follow in our footsteps and make things in America. Patriotic or green? It's both. So after our nominal business case volume is 250,000 units, so we're capacitating the line to do 250,000 units on 2 shifts, 5 days. We can overrun that, obviously. And so after 5 years of sales, we can reduce total U.S. gas consumption by nearly 0.5%. That's a meaningful number. Whether your biggest concern is greenhouse gases and global warming, or a trade deficit due to foreign oil? The answer is the same. Use less oil. And Elio can do that better than any other project that I'm aware of. And then the last piece that doesn't immediately leap off the page is if you're struggling in this country, your biggest issue is mobility. Harvard economist recently came out with a study that said the number one predictor on whether you get out of poverty or not is mobility. It correlates better than test scores in your community, at your grade schools, the number of two-parent households, or crime rates in your community. The number one correlator is mobility. New Jersey had a study that said some huge percentage of their chronically unemployed have been forced to turn down jobs because they had no way to get to the job. And at $6,800 and 84 miles per gallon, people can afford to get to their job. This product really matters at the end of the day. So on financing, we've raised $100 million to date, if you allow me to round slightly. 17 million of that came from Reg A Plus, and as I said, 24 million came from rewards crowdfunding. We're traded on the OTCQX, as was mentioned earlier, and that is all I have on the planned presentation. If you're speaking, I cannot hear you.
We're speechless.
Oh, there we
Thank
go.
you very much.
Yes, we are.
What's your market cap?
About 500 million.
What was it at issue?
300. So the Reg A Plus was $12 a share, and there was 25 million shares outstanding. So it was $300 million pre-money valuation, and then 317 post.
Thank you.
Patrick Reardon here. Did you have any selling stockholders?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Did you have any selling stockholders in your Reg A offering?
Selling stockholders?
Yes. Did any of your existing stockholders, insiders, sell any shares in the Reg A offering?
No. We didn't have that facility. I didn't know that was a possibility, but no, that didn't happen.
You know, I've got one question for you.
But on our Reg A Plus experience, 64% of our Reg A Plus shareholders and 68% of the dollar value came from people who already had a reservation on the vehicle. So, you know, it looks like an overnight success, but a lot of it had to do with, you know, several years of hard work communicating the Elio Motor story and getting the momentum behind it before Reg A Plus happened.
Could you kind of let us know your thinking in choosing to go the Reg A route?
Well, you know, I really enjoyed hearing the discussion before my presentation. Access to capital has been the single most difficult part of the Elio project. You would think designing a $6,800 84 mile per gallon car built in this country would be the hard part of the project, and it turns out no. Finding the money to build it has been the hard part, right? And we were stuck with the institutions before Reg A Plus. And as soon as I found out about it, because we had such good luck with the rewards crowdfunding, I thought Reg A Plus was a natural fit. And at the time, I didn't understand it. Since then, I've read the book, The Innovator's Dilemma. And I think that really fits Elio's experience. And if you're not familiar with it, the book studies the disk drive industry and then uses what it learned there across other industries and proves that it seems to fit. And what happened in the disk drive industry was in the 60s, there were 14-inch disk drives, and they were for mainframes. And somebody came up with an 8-inch disk drive, and it was more expensive per megabyte, but it was overall cheap. And what characterizes a disruptive technology is low price point, carryover technology in an undefined market, which describes Elio to a T. And so the 14-inch disk drive companies were well managed, companies, and so they listened to their customers and they invested improving their products in high margin demonstratable markets and didn't worry about these 8-inch disk drives who were aimed at mini computers, and who knew how big mini computers would ever get anyway. The 8-inch disk drive guys got so good they put all the 14-inch guys out of business. Now they were the incumbents. Somebody came up with a 5.25-inch drive aimed at a PC. Same thing, undefined market, low price point. The well-managed 8-inch drive companies listened to their customers, plowed money into making their drives better, faster, etc. I went after the high margins, well-defined markets. And those previously disruptive companies, once they were incumbents, got put out of business by the 5.25-inch guys. It happened again at 3.25 with the laptop, and then again at 2.2. So what seems to happen is big companies are really good at sustaining technology, but horrible at disruptive technology. And my experience is big funds and VCs are the same. They're looking for that high margin, well-defined market. They're horrible at identifying disruptive technologies, but the public is not. And that was the key, is being able to go to the public, do the Reg A Plus offering, and on the strength of that offering, we were able to kick off our E-Series of vehicles. So we're in the process of building 23 prototypes to do validation on before we kick off the hard tools. We unveiled E1A a couple of weeks ago, and I opened that event and said, this is an event brought to you by Reg A Plus. So that was the key to getting us off the dime, and now that we have gone through the process and we're a publicly traded company, it's a whole new world. Institutions that didn't want to talk to us and would return a phone call are calling us. So this has been a critical step for us. Did I answer your question? I kind of lost track of the question in my answer, I think.
Well, I think you did. The question was just going to give us some insight as to your thinking and choosing to go the Reg A route. And I guess a follow-on question might be follow-on offerings. And what are you thinking about? What are your future capital needs that you're projecting, and how do you plan on addressing that?
So this is I'm learning to be a CEO of a public company. I don't know how much of that I can answer now, because if it's not publicly disclosed, I can't talk about it. That's been the biggest change for me, because I'm normally a lay all the cards on the table kind of guy.
Steve,
Right?
Steve sounds
So
like Paul has a better counsel. Very smart answer, I think,
So
Paul. You might want to stop there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you raised, if I saw the math right, you raised almost 16 million in the round, and you've raised 99 million or almost 100 million total. What made you choose the size of the Reg A Plus round that you ended up executing?
So we had targeted 25 million. We did a test the waters campaign. We got $46 million in indications of interest. 6 million of that 46 came from 12 people who had reserved 500,000 shares. None of them purchased even a share. So I'm going to write those off as not serious. So we had $40 million of actual indications of interest to raise 25. Our timing was horrible. We got qualified by the SEC right before Thanksgiving, which is not a great time to raise money, but that's okay because we had January. And then in January, the markets collapsed, and it's the first time in 6 years that nobody did an IPO. Right? It was the first month in 6 years. So I think that had our timing been a little different, if we would have gotten through a little earlier, we would have raised the full 25. But it was enough to get the E1A series going and get us off the dime. Did that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm a lawyer in Florida, and so same type of question in terms of trying to decide how to raise the capital. You didn't use commission salespeople. Had you thought about, instead of doing Reg A Plus, a private placement using general solicitation, what lawyers call 506C? Had you thought about that as an alternative, and did you not do that because you planned on trying to be publicly traded, and therefore this was easier?
Well, there's two parts to that answer. So one is the underwriting piece that I'd like to talk to, and the other one is the 506C. We actually did do a 506C before Reg A Plus was available. We raised $5 million in that effort. I think the problem with 506C, it's better to be able to publicly disclose that you're trying to raise money, but it's still a very cumbersome process, right? One, you constrain yourself to 7% of the population, and that 7% is over-marketed to because everybody's constrained to that 7% of the population. And two, because the check sizes, it's one-off meetings, right? They have to meet with management in order to do a deal. And so it's a very slow, cumbersome process. It's doable, but it's very difficult. And the nice thing about Reg A Plus is the pool is much bigger. People can invest much less, and you can do, multiply your marketing efforts by using social media and the internet, et cetera. On using brokers, I wanted to use brokers in addition to the portal. So we used startengine.com. That was a very good experience. But I wanted to also have brokers because when you're investing your money, there's a lot of people who want to talk to somebody. They don't want to just click a button, right? And we looked into that, and the brokers that we were talking to said it was going to take an extra 90 to 120 days for them to do their due diligence, get through FINRA in order to be able to do it with us. And I was in a hurry. I needed to keep this company going. And so although I wanted to do it that way, we chose not to because it was time prohibitive. So we self-underwrote. And honestly, self-underwriting, other than not having live people for people to talk to, worked pretty well. I think the one mistake that we made, if I had to do over again, is we did not get analyst coverage engaged until after we were on the QX. So I don't know, it was 3-4 weeks ago, Zach finally came out with an analyst report. I think there needs to be a cottage industry of analysts who follow Reg A Plus deals. I think the investor needs that feedback from professional advisors looking at companies and doing due diligence, saying, I think this one's good, I don't think that one's good. So hopefully more and more companies will start looking at Reg A Plus and following them. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
I'd like to confirm a stat. You said that 68% of the funders actually were pre-reservation holders also?
No, 64% by number, 68% by dollar value.
Can you talk about what your...
And that's the other, well, on that point, that's the other thing that Reg A Plus did for the public, is I would go to Elio events and people would say, hey, I would love to invest in Elio. And I'd say, you're accredited. No, well, you can't. Yeah. So there's these people who identified this is a good company and I want to be a part of it, and they were precluded. And now, when we did our 506C, we marketed to our reservations. So the 6,400 people who did Reg A Plus, assumably the majority were non-accredited, wanted to be part of Elio, but couldn't, and then were allowed to. So, and if we make it, that will be a great story.
So you marketed to 64, you got 6,400 out of the 54,000 reservations that you have.
Correct. At the time, it was less. It was probably 40-something thousand, but yes.
Thank you.
Can you talk about your pitch process? How many VCs, angels, different vehicles, methods of trying to raise capital you went through before settling on Reg A Plus?
Yeah, so, we talked to a lot of different institutions. We're a company that doesn't fit. So VCs are comfortable with pre-revenue startups, but they want to spend $3 million and create Facebook. And when you show them a $300 or $400 million budget, their heads pop off. You go to private equity guys, they're comfortable with that check, but when you say you're pre-revenue and will be for another year, their heads pop off. And both of them like to specialize because of their concentration of wealth. They get really good at a sector. Hey, we invest in biotech. We invest in technology. And so we needed to convince these big institutions to do two things they were uncomfortable with. One, sector, because there's not enough new vehicle startups for anybody to specialize in it, and then depending on whether it's a VC or a private equity, we had to overcome that other one. And then thirdly was the whole innovator's dilemma issue that I just spoke about. And it's kind of funny, the last institution I pitched like 2 weeks before we went live on Reg A Plus, about halfway through a very similar presentation to what you saw, the guy interrupted me and said, "Why would I invest in you before you've built a vehicle?" And I thought to myself, you know, the point of the equity markets have gotten lost. You know, in the 1700s, when people were trading securities underneath a tree on the corner of Broad and Wall, the equity markets was a place for companies to raise capital to either start or expand, not a place for VCs and private equity firms to cash out their winnings. And that kind of gotten lost with this concentration of capital. And I think Reg A Plus has a chance to bring it back to its roots, where equity is about a place for companies to find capital to start and to expand.
How many of those conversations did you have, roughly? Did you keep track?
I did not keep track. From 2009 to date, it had to be hundreds. But in fairness, when the Dow was at 7,000, it didn't matter what you were pitching, the answer was no, right? So there's a couple of years there where there was a lot of meetings with those types of institutions, and it didn't matter what you were pitching. So,
Paul, this is Catherine Mott. I just want to commend you on an excellent, job raising capital. You went along the path of least resistance in all of these situations and found capital and found successful ways to fund the growth of your company. And you correctly characterize the VC industry. I'm in that industry, so I know exactly what you're talking about. There is a tendency to follow this, focus on what you know and understand, and also focus on the trends. And so when something comes along that is not trendy, there's, they're risk averse, because they're managing other people's money. The key thing that you've done is you found people who are willing to risk their own money, and you went after, potential customers. And I think that's brilliant. And I just want to commend you on what you've done. I have no question. I just wanted to say congratulations.
oh, thank you. And back at you. So the Reg A Plus process was a great experience for us. The SEC was incredibly cooperative. And as an example, we went live on our Test the Water campaign, and StartEngine.com wanted to put a counter up on how many people have reserved and what the dollar amount was. And so internally, our legal team debated whether it was allowed or not for 4 or 5 days. And finally we said, well, let's ask the SEC. We called the SEC, asked the question. They got back to us with an answer within days. So within, and we were told, yes, it was okay. And so we put the counter up. And that process happened over and over and over. The SEC encouraged us to ask questions. There was a lot of things where it wasn't clear what we could and should do with the given situation, and it was a very quick and easy feedback loop of question and answer to get through the process. So,
have you personally invested in any other Reg A companies?
No, I'm pretty much all in Elio Motors at the moment. So the answer is no.
Paul, this is Lori Yamanaka. I had a question. When you were going through this and you said the hardest thing to do was to find capital, when you were starting this process and even all during the process, did you have a lot of professional people who were coming to you and say, try this, try this, try this, and they weren't working? Or was it just people going, well, maybe you could try this, but we don't know? What kind of advice? Because I'm presuming you didn't all have it. You didn't do it out of your head.
Right. So it was a combination of both. I just kept trying to figure it out. So at a couple different points, we engaged different firms to go out to the private equity, hedge funds, and VC markets. They would say, hey, we can get this done. We're going to get you a ton of meetings. We're going to do a road show, because this is a compelling company,
Yeah.
right? And they were excited, and they would spend, depending on the situation, because I think there was 3 different ones that we used over the course of the years. They would spend anywhere from 2 to 5 months doing due diligence, putting together this beautiful package to send out, an enormous amount of work. And they would send it out, and we'd get 2 meetings. So we'd get tied up for 6 or 9 months and only get 2 meetings out of it. Because they were shocked too. And I think that dynamic, it was the 3 things that we talked about: the innovator's dilemma, the concentration of capital, and the nobody specializes in this. And I think it shocked even the professionals how difficult it was to get somebody to write a check for Elio Motors because we just don't fit.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
One last question. You say you don't fit, and you're describing that situation. What percentage of the time was Tesla brought up as either a positive or negative example, either by you or the person listening to you, as an example of what you were trying to accomplish?
It doesn't get brought up much, but it definitely helps us. You know, I cheer Tesla every single day, because if you take Tesla out of the equation, the last American vehicle company started and still standing is Walter P. Chrysler in 1928. So it's been 90 years since somebody's done this successfully, and that doesn't help the story either. But Tesla having done it and have a $30 billion market cap certainly helps us. So I continue to applaud them.
Hey, Paul, I have a quick question. So again, I want to echo the congratulations earlier. I think this is a phenomenal company, and the fact that you went through the Reg A process makes it even more exciting, certainly for us as a real shining example of how this process can be successful. I had a question about that. Did going through that process and the notoriety and the marketing of going through that with investors help you with your suppliers and the other partners of the company? Was there an accretive sort of value that you saw because of going through the process?
Kind of, but not really. So most of the supply base was already highly engaged before Reg A Plus. But what it did is keep them engaged, right? So you got to keep all the stakeholders engaged. And like I said, the biggest issue is attracting the capital. And so as they saw this being successful, their commitment certainly deepened, because now they believe that we can make it, right? And that was always the hardest part to believe. Like, they know that we can pull off the stats. It's like, can you find the money to build the car? And certainly Reg A Plus helped that belief and deepen their commitments.
And another quick question, just as someone who is now very interested in buying one of these, do I need to have a motorcycle license in order to drive, or can I use, and I live in California, so I'm assuming it's state specific?
So I have a slide for that. Oh, I lost the audio. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So when we started, this is what the map looked like. Yellow and red are bad, green is good on requiring a helmet to drive an Elio, right? Because we are technically a motorcycle. And so what we've done is go state by state and create a new category called an autocycle. And an autocycle is an enclosed three-wheel vehicle with at least 3 airbags, seatbelts for every occupant position, etc. And if you're an autocycle, you don't need a motorcycle license or a helmet. This is the map as of June 27th. So there's 5 states left where if you're under 21 or under 18 that you need a helmet, and there's only 1 state that over 21 that you still need a helmet, and that's West Virginia. The problem there is their legislature only works 45 days a year, and we missed it, so we got to wait for a year. And then on the licensing, same story. Yellow is bad, green is good. This is where we're at. So we're about a year from production. So I suspect by the time we hit production, our intent is to have both maps completely green.
Great, thank you.
Paul, back to a non-sexy question here. Were you able to track the total cost of going through the Reg A process versus the anticipated cost for other avenues, and how did it line up, and did it fall into what your expectations were? I'm talking all-in costs.
Yes, I should know that number off the top of my head, and I don't. I'm kind of embarrassed that I didn't prep myself on that one. So I apologize.
It's okay.
No, because that's something I should know. It was cheap relatively to other options, to a traditional IPO with a major bank. It was certainly doable and rather inexpensive.
So going into the process, it was obviously less expensive, and actually going through the process itself, it came in within expectation, even though you didn't hit your 25 million target. 17 was totally fine.
Right. So, we had a minimum of 12.6 and a target of 25. And so, there was different plans on how to run the business depending on different funding levels. And the 17.6, like I said, or the 17 was certainly enough, and it got this whole train moving. And now being publicly traded, there's just a lot more tools in our toolkit in order to raise capital, and it's a different world. I've said several times, I feel like Reg A Plus put us over the hump. Now, you don't actually get a memo or an email to say you're officially over a hump. It's just a sense that we're over the hump, but I feel like it did that.
Well, they're calling you, right? That's the hump. So that's good. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you.
One last question.
Yeah, I had Mr. Elio, fantastic company. Did you encounter people who heard about this, wanted in, but have never heard of the accredited investor rule, don't know whether they themselves are or are not?
Yes, I would suspect that the majority of the people who invested in our Reg A Plus offering had never heard of the accredited investor rule until they read the stuff on the portal at startengine.com.
And if I may follow up.
And the reason I say that
Sure.
is at events, before this was available and reservation holders would ask me, can I invest in your company? And I would have that discussion with them. They were unaware of that, right?
Do you find
Well, I'm
the accredited
extrapolating,
investor
but-
rule to be too stringent or not stringent enough? Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, it's a fine line to walk. I get you want to protect the little guy who doesn't know what he's doing, but by the same token, you preclude him from investing in Uber and Facebook and Elio and things that can have huge swings. And so, how do you determine that they really know enough that they're taking the risk eyes wide open? Right? It's not guaranteeing that they're going to win, that they're not going to lose money, but that they understand the risk they're undertaking. And I like some of the discussion. I think the test, although can be circumvented, was a good idea. Because even if you circumvent it, if you have to memorize all those answers, you know enough to know that the risk that you're taking. And one of the things we did is we reached out to Motley Fool, and we asked them to create a video on or a paper on how to invest in Reg A Plus deals, not specific to Elio. And we put that on startengine.com and on our own website. And they went through and they said, look, if you have high interest debt credit cards, pay those off, don't invest in Reg A Plus. If you don't have 3 to 9 months of savings, of salary and savings, save money, don't invest in Reg A Plus. And if you do have all these criteria met, invest in 5 to 10, like just mirroring the discussion that you had. So we put that on both the portal, Start Engine, and our own website to try to, people are taking a risk when they buy Elio shares. They are, until we're in production, we're not, right? But letting people go in eyes wide open, I think that's really the key.
That is great. You could have let off with that. That's great. That's something. You got so many hits on that, I bet, right? As far as people who are checking that out and actually checking out that video. It's exactly the kind of marketing we need. Thank you.
So yeah, if you want, I'm sure we can share it with you. I'm sure Motley Fool wouldn't be sad if you had their name somewhere and we're sharing that information.
We'll see what we can do, right? I'm sure.
One question. You say you're a car person. What's the 0 to 60 time?
We've been targeting under 10 seconds. I don't know that we're going to achieve that from current stats, but the target's been under 10 seconds.
That's not bad for that little engine.
No, and you can turbocharge it, and then that I think we can get it under 5. So there's no turbo planned, but in the design that IAB is doing, the cylinder wall thicknesses, everything will accept the extra stress that would be from a turbo. The intercooler packaging is protected for. And Kamau, when they designed the engine assembly line, left a hole so we could put a turbo in. So although no work has been done on a turbo because you got to crawl before you walk, we have certainly protected for it. And I think that would be a really fun product.
That would be.
We have any more questions in the room? I don't think so. Paul, thank you very much for doing this, and I am so glad that the video held up. I was worried about that one. So thank you very much for presenting, and good luck.
And thank you for having me, and thanks for accommodating the virtual appearance. I do appreciate it.